like a pro. Capita.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Brandi Beauty TV. Today's video, let me slow down a little bit because I'm getting a little bit too excited. It's long overdue, but I wanted to make sure that I had the appropriate models to be able to showcase the various, content that I needed to be able to film for you guys. So today's model is my client Renata, and she's about 40 to 50% gray all over, mainly throughout like her ears up, but she has a lot of gray in the back as well, just not as much as the front. But this is going to be a part of a gray coverage series that I'll be uploading to every now and then. And this series is not going to be just cut and dry, so there's no telling how many videos I'll be uploading to this series, but regardless, it's here. And every single time I have a gray client or someone who has gray, or anytime I'm doing gray coverage, it'll be in this series on this playlist. So anyways, today we're doing a gray coverage and highlights. And I've always noticed that any single time people are battling with gray hair starting to come in, it's like a whole nother universe. Like, they don't understand it. They don't know how to maintain it, how to manage it. And the first thing that most people do is what? They go get some black box dye or some black semi-permanent color, and they just douse their head in black dye. And unless you just love being black, I honestly am sorry to tell you guys, but that is one of the worst things that you can do for gray coverage. And I'm going to express to you why. But first, let's get into this formula. For one, Renata, we always shift her base color. We always take her a little bit lighter just so her grays don't come in as harsh. So I'm using a 5N and 20 volume developer to touch up her roots, and then I'll also be giving her a nice partial highlight, very simple placement with my Blonde Solutions and 20 volume developer. Okay guys, so let's talk about the science of gray hair and just exactly what it is and why it could be so difficult to live with sometimes. So for starters, each follicle or strand of hair that's on your head has stem cells in it, and these cells are responsible for making the melanin, or let's just say it's responsible for giving your hair the pigment and the color that it has, right? But as you age, these cells that are responsible for developing pigment, they actually start to die off. So in turn, your body naturally will give these gray hair, because eventually they'll start turning silver, gray, and then eventually white. The older you get, it'll just stop producing, and they'll just completely just start dying off. Not that your hair will not stop growing, although sometimes that is the case as well. First, it'll start just turning gray. Now, this is not for everybody. Everybody is different. There's always an exception to the rule, but generally speaking, this is the process of the hair and how it starts to age or whatever. So your body naturally compensates for lack of pigment by giving these silver, gray, white strands of hair twice as much protein. And protein is the building block for hair. All hair is made of protein, right? But being that this gray hair lacks the melanin that it needs to give it its strength, your body gives it twice as much protein. And twice as much protein means coarser, wiry, harder strands of hair. And they also reject everything that you do to try to cover it up. So whereas your cuticle is used to being, let's just say its normal thickness in terms of how coarse it is, when you have a gray hair, it's going to be twice as thick. So it's not going to be easy for hair color and for styling products to penetrate these strands of hair. So there are things that we have to do to kind of try to compensate for that. But I think it's actually kind of cool how nature just has a balancing act within itself at all times. Like if it's not getting what it needs to survive from one source, it's going to get it from another. Like it's always a balancing act, in nature. So I really kind of appreciate that. Even though gray hairs can be our pain, it's still kind of cool to see how they start coming in and you just don't have any control over it. So that's the science behind it. It's pretty neat, but it's a pain. So let's talk about this hair color. Now, being that you're always fighting lack of pigment with gray hair, you always have to think about the color choice that you're going to use and the developer strength. For Renata's hair, I used a 5N, and the only reason why I could use a 5N is simply because her gray hair is not extremely coarse. So I always have to feel the client's hair to see, like if they're regular hair, like if I can feel their hair and they, they're not completely gray, I can kind of still feel, their texture and whatnot. So if I know their regular texture is just, let's just say medium, I know if they have gray hair, those gray hairs are going to be coarse. So that always gives me an idea of the color line I need to use, and even if I need to use a double series. Now, a double series is like a lot of color lines will sometimes have color dedicated to gray coverage specifically. And normally these gray coverage series have twice as much pigment. So whatever pigment the regular color line would have, it will get a double dose of that. And that's because it doesn't have any pigment there in the gray hair. So any type of color you put on it is going to make it look or appear hollow. So to give it that rich look, the actual color that it should be, it gives you a double dose of that. And it's really, really helpful. Now, sometimes that doesn't even work. Sometimes I have to go over it twice. So I'll have to use a double series and then I have to go back over it and fill it again so it's not so hollow. And so this is why I always tell everybody to shy away from using black, because black is the darkest color. It's the absolute darkest. So if you put in black on white hair, it's going to look gray. So it's almost not going to work. Or when your regular gray hair, white hair starts to grow in, that contrast is going to it's going to be outstanding. To see black against white, it's just like, wow, like it's obvious she needs a color job. She needs to get her hair touched up. And nobody wants to walk around like that. So, it's kind of giving, hide the puppies, Cruella. Like, really Cruella DeVille. And I highly suggest not using black. You can do what you want to do now. I ain't nobody mama. But I highly suggest sticking with a lighter shade. I always tell people, if you're coming in gray, that's the Lord telling you that it's time to go lighter and start getting some highlights, because it's not as invasive. It looks softer. The grow out is more seamless, and you can go a little bit of time between your touch up as opposed to using black on white hair. Okay, y'all, so Renata's hair is looking fabulous. And let me also add that for her toner, I used Redken Shady Q with a gloss solution in 7V and 9V. And that's V as in violet. So that gave us a nice neutral blonde. So it has equal parts of warm and cool, and it looks so good on her skin. And you can see this got this nice dimension in it. She got different shades of blonde. She's got that brown popping through, and ain't no gray hairs popping out anywhere. And let me also add, I forgot to mention this earlier, that the reason why I use 20 volume developer instead of 10 volume developer for gray hair is because the peroxide needs to be able to cut through that cuticle. And 10 volume just ain't gonna do it. You need something a little bit more aggressive, and 20 volume is always perfect for that. It's not too harsh like a 30 or 40, but it gives just the right amount of punch to break through that shell that gray hair has. So it allows your color to take beautifully. So that's what we did. And as you can see, it's just flowing, and I love her hair color. This brown looks so good on her, and it just keeps her gray hairs, keeps them in time out. Like y'all can come out, but you come out gracefully. Don't be busting out, embarrassing me. It keeps them nice and tame so she can go a little bit longer in between her touch-ups. So for Renata's style, guys, we're just going to do some simple, beautiful, soft curls. Renata does not like me to comb out her curls, and she know I get an attitude about that. But I really understand, because it's just something about that second day hair. So after she pin curls it or wraps it, or however she plans to set it tonight, it'll be ready for her week, and it'll just be flowing and everything. But still, you'll still get to see it. You just won't be able to see the full style and all this splendor and all its grandeur. But it's still gonna look real nice. So back to this gray hair. Y'all, look, gray hair is subjective, okay? Don't stress out about it. And I'm saying that as if I'm dealing with it, but I'm not. I'm not even gray. I don't have not one strand of gray hair. But I understand, because I see it all the time, and it's a worry for most. And you just got to think about, what do you want? Do you want to be gray? Do you mind the gray? Does it bother you? Is it youth? Is it you don't want to look old? What are your hot points? What bothers you most about being gray? And once you identify that, we can kind of come up with a target game plan to figure out how we should conceal it, blend it out, cover it, whatever needs to be done so that you are comfortable in your gray hair. Now, I tell you this, people get frustrated with gray hair, coming in, and I always have to tell you, it ain't going nowhere. Like, it's never going nowhere. Once it starts coming in, that's a wrap. Welcome to your new life. It's gonna be great. So either you're gonna be, constantly in a salon covering it, or trying to cover it, by going to the beauty supply store and getting some box color, which y'all know how I feel about box color, and just don't do that. Like, Lord have mercy. Don't cover your gray hair with box color, because it's no telling what they're putting in that stuff. And they make it and they manufacture it like it's a one size fit all type of thing, and it's not. All hair color is custom. Hair color has to be catered to the individual. You can't just do a universal hair color and think it's gonna look the same on everybody. That's not how that works. So the biggest thing is to just make sure that you understand how you want your gray hair to look if you plan on wearing it, or if you're even comfortable with just changing your overall base color so that you can wear it to where it's comfortable and you don't have to live in the salon trying to cover it. So y'all, we are done with Renata's hair. Y'all, for real, her hair came out good. Like, ain't a gray hair in sight. We did that. We did it. And it just looks good. It looks fresh. It looks vibrant. It's dimensional. And she has that perfect brightness around her face. So when those gray hairs start popping back up, she won't even barely, even notice it. Of course, she'll see them because she sees herself every day. But the average person on the street, they're not going to be able to really notice it all that well. So mission accomplished. Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Y'all, we almost to 1,000. We almost there. I'll see y'all in my next video.